Because we have to talk money, don't we? We always do around this time of day on a Saturday. Experts claim that the UK is on the brink of a recession despite the country's GDP rebounding in December. Well, tiny rebound, basically. Office for the National Statistics figures show GDP expanded by 0.3% for November, which is slightly higher than the city's forecast for the country's economy. But analysts are warning that despite this growth for the month, GDP dropped to 0.2% in the 3 months up to November, which means interest rates could remain on hold at the Bank of England's monetary policy meeting next month. Look, lots of figures for a Saturday afternoon, isn't it? I know, I get that, I understand that. And who even knows what 0.2% is? Anyways, here to explain all of this and much more is the lovely Justin Urquhart-Stewart, director and co-founder regionally, to explain what's going on with these tiny weeny percentages that everyone goes, what's that even mean?
Yeah, as bounds go, it's a pretty small bound.
It's sort of more of a wriggle, yes, really, a wrinkle.
Basically, what you're dealing with is actually these are, frankly, rounding errors. The economy is flat. But let's put it in perspective. The global economy was growing at about 3-4% about 4 years ago. It's now around about half that level and is getting slow. But it's still been growing. Considering what's been happening in the world with wars and inflation, all those issues, actually that's not such a bad position. However, in the past week, I'm afraid the indicators are starting to change. And I'm afraid they're not looking good. Because remember the inflation we had piled up? It didn't pile up because of consumer spending. It piled up because of supply chain interference. Why do we have supply chain interference? Because of what happened in Ukraine, what happened with regard to container ships, and of course now exactly what we're seeing, not just Ukraine, but also with the Straits of Hormuz and also with the Red Sea as well, and huge container ships now actually going round the Cape of Good Hope to be able to go around there. That's adding time, adding cost. That's going to mean there's more inflationary push coming through, and it's more inflationary push at a time when we thought interest rates could be cut. They could actually stay there, or may even, if we do start seeing inflation pick up, some of the central banks might start raising them again. But we haven't reached that stage yet. Right, OK, you're not really helping here, actually,
no. Justin. But basically, I mean, you're right. I mean, you know, but by the ships not going through the Red Sea, and I think there's 2 big shipping companies that have already diverted. I mean, that takes another 10 days, and that's £1 million in extra fuel costs. No. Everything's just going to go up, isn't it?
The container rates have already gone up significantly. Now, what is interesting is the oil price hasn't shot up too much. We would expect, actually...
It has gone up, though, hasn't it?
It's up a bit, but compared to what we saw before, which was a bigger reaction to it. Now, this could get worse if, well, it depends on what's happening with the fighting and things like that, and if that is seen to spread. But what you are seeing at the moment, though, is actually the economy, despite all these headwinds, showing a level global resilience. You know, the Chinese economy is slowing down, but it's still growing. The American economy is actually doing quite well. But it's actually, we saw some growth figures there. Inflation slightly higher than they thought it was actually going to be. But that's OK. What you've actually seen there is the consumer, remember, over 65% of the US economy is based on Joe Schmo, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Schmo, living in Little Rock, Arkansas, shopping in Walmart. And they own their house, and if they're happy, then the American economy is doing well.
Right.
And so actually that's all right for the moment. But the sales are flapping at the moment, and there's no clear direction. So what should people do at the moment? The answer is, well, don't panic. There's no need to panic at the moment. You don't have to rush out and sell everything, but just don't take big risks for the time being.
Because this hasn't really I mean, it has just started, the problems with the Red Sea. I mean, it has been going on since November, but it's obviously escalated hugely. So it hasn't really filtered through into the global economy.
And what happened last time, we knew what to do. When we had the issue with regard to the grain not coming out of Ukraine, other supplies were found. In terms of gas not being able to get out, and the problems there, we found other supplies for that as well, not having to be dependent upon Russia. So, to an extent, we've been through some of this before, but it doesn't stop the risk actually still being there. Countries like Egypt are going to be furious with this, because one of their primary income sources is actually people using the Suez Canal. If they can't get ships going through it, they're absolutely
I didn't know that. It costs quite a lot of money to use the Suez Canal rather than go around the end of Africa, doesn't it?
As long as they charge less than 10 days' worth of fuel, people want to use them. But at the moment, if they're suddenly losing 50-60%, I suspect probably more of their income coming through that, then I'm afraid that's going to be very bad news for them indeed. So it's in their interest and the Middle Eastern countries' interest to actually try and keep this as calm as possible.
Get it sorted out as much, but we've already heard companies like Tesla and Next and IKEA saying that it is affecting business.
Yeah, so what you've got, again, exactly as we saw before, is interrupting the delivery. Remember, we had all those consultants for the past 15 years going around where you need just-in-time delivery, which means everything is stretched, so it gets there just in time.
Yes.
The trouble is just-in-time is as soon as you cut it, it's like a piece of elastic, it goes twang, and so you're now missing the car battery or the wheel or whatever it is you need, which gets there just in time. So he can't complete his Teslas or whatever it happens to be. So again, companies have seen this before, and they have been building in alternatives. They've been building up supplies and stocks. If they haven't been doing that, then they haven't been paying attention. The manufacturers that I look at actually are the ones who said, yes, look, we know what we can do about this. There are alternatives to it. It's risky, but we've been here, pay attention and revert to the next plan you did last time.
As it's interesting you mentioned the oil price has gone up, $80 a barrel, first time since Christmas, but not as much as it could do.
Absolutely.
And the Houthis sort of like fired back last night and just missed a tanker carrying Russian oil.
Yes, that's very clever, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it just gets scarier the more you talk about it and think about it, doesn't it? Justin, thank you so much for coming in and kind of cheering us up, can I say that? Thank you. That's Justin Urquhart-Stewart, a director and co-founder at Regionally there, trying to cheer us up a bit.